Hey BP family, welcome back to the show. Today we are looking at these excellent, awesome little creatures right here. They are travelers who have come to us from very far away. A friend has sent us some samples of their beautiful ecosystems, and I'm so happy to dive in and check them out. Before we begin, our buddy PsychoPlantLady sent us these samples including Frogbit, Azolla Fern, bladder snails, some very interesting Ramshorns, and some other things. So don't be shy. Go over, check out her channel. It's good stuff. It's a great banner, Dina. I love it. She has some dragonfly content coming up lately, and I know you guys have been very interested in them. So yeah, check out PsychoPlantLady. And thank you so much, Dina. I love this. This is awesome. Uh, to receive live samples from a friend like this. It's really cool. And so here we are. I have unboxed them, and we have two separate packages here. We have Frogbit and Azolla Fern. I'm very excited. This is the Azolla, and there might be some other goodies in here as well. And this is the Frogbit. Very excited about both of these plants. I've been looking for them for a little while now. Especially the Azolla fern, as I've seen some nearby, and we were denied permission to collect from the landowner, which is understandable, but still disappointing. So thank you so much, Dina. I cannot express how grateful and excited I am. These samples are alive. There is a lot of activity in here, and that's perfect. You know, this is BucketPonds. We love hitchhikers. So what we're going to do is build two separate aquariums, one for each of these sample sections. And I just happen to have these two jars on hand. One is a flower vase and the other is a pickle jar. But I scrubbed them pretty thoroughly and they're very clean. So the goal here is to add our samples into these projects without contaminating them with our own BucketPonds species. So I have equipped a new pair of gloves, and we're going to add a few bits of marble into this project, along with a handful of our sand that we use. And I'm doing this to basically set up a BucketPonds style jar using these excellent samples. It might sound kind of complicated, but basically I'm building some jar aquariums in the style that I always use. And we're going to make sure that these species will cooperate with our methods. Here we are. Now, I like the shape of this flower vase. Yeah, I might get more of these. But these days, I rely heavily on jars that have lids, as we are avoiding any flying insects from getting into these ecosystems. But we're going to cut up our first bag, cut it open anyway. And I'll be using our syringe to our pipette to help free up any little friends inside of this container here, inside of this bag. There we go. There's always a few bits of plants and little snails and things that like to stay inside of the packaging, so it's always good to rinse them into the jar as well. There's a good look at the Azolla fern. I love this stuff. It's been on my list for a long time, and it's a very interesting plant. Azolla, once upon a time, completely changed the climate of our planet. It's a very interesting, unassuming little plant. You can read about it. It's called the Azolla event that probably occurred about 50 million years ago. And this plant has the ability to completely reverse global warming and climate change, which is very interesting. Maybe we should put it to work instead of all of the bickering and arguing that people do about such topics. But here we are. We have added our samples to our new jar aquarium, and it looks nice. Yeah, not bad. I'm very happy with this. Now, we're not going to do any aquascaping or anything like that, as these are functional jars. These are not meant to be visually appealing. They are meant to raise and propagate life. But here is our second package. This contains some beautiful Frogbit, which is a plant that I have been very interested in for a long time. It also has a ton of snails in here. Now, both packages contained aquatic snails, but the Frogbit package that Dina sent us also has some very interesting Ramshorn snails in there as well. And they seem to vary a bit. They're a little bit different when compared to our red and brown Ramshorns that we have been raising in our tanks at home. So, Dina sent us what appears to be an entirely new species for us, and that is amazing. You can order plants online, and that's cool. Nothing wrong with that. But when a friend, gives you the gift of plants, especially plants that you can propagate, that you can grow and expand, that's a gift that lasts for a very long time. And that means a lot. A lot of our flowers were gifts from friends and family, and a lot of the things that you see in the oasis as well. This stuff means a lot to me. The natural world that we have discovered as I created BucketPonds and got into all this stuff. Like before this, I was blind to this world, to this amazing environment all around us. And I grew up in Florida, and I probably saw Frogbit a million times and never thought about it. So, now that we've opened our eyes and, we've made friends and they've sent us some from Florida and it's awesome. So it means a lot. Thank you so much. But I have taken a few of the Frogbit plants and placed them in other nano aquariums nearby. I like to practice triple redundancy. So if the worst thing happens and all of the Frogbit dies in this project, we will have several backup containers with other pieces of Frogbit. And I did the same with the Azolla Fern. I've set up backups for each of them. I'd like to do so with the snails as well, but they need to get breeding first. We need to start up a little population before I can kidnap a few of them and put them in other containers. But now we're going to do what I enjoy doing anytime we take samples from new ecosystems. We isolate them, we do not cross-contaminate, and we feed them. So I throw some food in here, a little bit of extra food, to be honest, and I wait to see what happens. Now, there's a good chance that our buddy Dina, PsychoPlantLady, would have a couple detritivores in her ecosystems, in her aquariums. It's very natural. We're all going to have a couple detritus worms here and there, and a little algae. But when I start feeding these tanks and nurturing them, it basically encourages everything to grow. So, those 2 or 3 detritus worms that were in here become 10 or 20, become 30 or 40. And, the same thing happens with the algae and the snails as well, though the snails take a little longer than the microfauna. So after 1 week here, we have some excellent growth. I see some new algae forming, looks like filamentous algae, something like that. And I'm very excited to have algae samples from a foreign ecosystem. That's very cool. I'm also interested in the bacteria that may be latent in here. We all have beneficial bacteria in our aquariums, and there's no rule stating that they are all the exact same species. Bacteria can develop very rapidly. So there's always the chance that you may acquire better beneficial bacteria. And don't get me wrong, I'm no scientist, but this is a practice I have been working with for a while now, and it definitely seems to work. Most of our projects turn out great, and I believe that's in part to our crazy mixture of beneficial bacteria that we've acquired from many different locations and different states, including now PsychoPlantLady's environment. So here we have one of our very interesting little ramshorn snails. So they do seem to be a different species than our ramshorns that we raise elsewhere, and they are coexisting with the bladder snails just fine, which is a good sign. Though, they're bladder snails. They're not going to hurt you. That's the last thing in the world they would even think about. They're looking for food and to see if maybe you would like to mate with them. These ramshorns, though, they are very intriguing. They seem to move with their shell lying on its side. And yeah, I don't know. I'll have to dig in a little bit more and try and figure out what they should be called. Maybe you guys might know more about them. They came from, I believe, northern Florida. And yeah, they're just excellent little ramshorn snails. They're not very big, though they may be young. I don't know. They just came to us. We'll watch them over time, though, and we'll enjoy them. Now, we do have a few wilted pieces of Frogbit in here. And again, I think that's because I allowed the package to sit for a little bit longer than it should have. That's not Dina's fault. Um, I don't know if she's going to start selling plants or something eventually. But if she does, I highly suggest that you guys, you know, give Dina a call or check out her website or even just watch some of her videos. It's good stuff. And I'm excited to see other YouTubers in this genre, in this niche that we're in. And to be honest, these are very clean samples. I had to nurture them for a long time to really get this algae to grow. But here we are. And after quite a little bit over a week of heavy feeding and exposure to conditions within the fish room, we have triggered a paramecium swarm. Yeah, yeah, we have paramecium in here, you guys, and this footage is sped up a little bit, but that's how they move in the water column. It's very beautiful to watch. And here we are. So this is jar number 1 after a week and a half, and it is beautiful. It looks great. We have new ramshorns in here. We have paramecium. Frogbit is doing great, along with a little bit of interesting algae. So let's check out jar number 2. This has Azolla aquatic fern floating on the surface. You may have noticed in the previous segment that jar had a screen mesh lid. I had to make a lid of some kind to help prevent any flying insects from getting into the jar. Not mosquitoes, but fly moths, or drain flies, you may call them as well. But this second container here with the Azolla samples, it's beautiful actually. There's quite a lot of activity in here as well. This is when I get excited, you guys. So again, Dina probably had just a couple detritus worms in her plants. Very natural, very normal. But with our culturing and nurturing methods, we have encouraged them to replicate. And we've created quite a swarm in here. We have both paramecium and some very interesting worms as well. Yeah, we have one piece of Frogbit here that seems to be struggling. Maybe I can help get it into the air again. But while moving that around a little bit, I noticed that we dislodged a whole ton of worms, you guys. Yes. This is what we want. Yes, I love the plants. Don't get me wrong. The Frogbit, the Azolla fern, beautiful. They will be with us for a long time, and that is awesome. But there's also the underlying, the hidden gift of Microfauna, and that's what we have here, you guys. Check it out. Check them out. Yes, so this is a species that I have not encountered before. They look a little bit like our Dero Worms, with that strange appendage on their head. Though they are a different shape. They're a little bit smaller and translucent and very hard to focus on with my camera equipment. Please remember, I am using some hacked together technology here to produce these videos. Uh, it's Fallout apocalypse, scrap together some lenses and stuff, and that's what we do here. But these worms are very interesting, and if we look at the surface where they all seem to be heading, we have a lot of activity up here. Oh my God. Now, a lot of people might be saying, oh no, worms, but I love them. This is it, you guys. I can guarantee that they are not parasitic, as there are only a couple snails in here. No way to support such a large population of parasites. These guys are mostly eating the food that I threw in here, or maybe bacterial blooms that are forming off of that food. But I even see a second worm species right there, wiggling its way to the surface of the water, and they look very familiar. And looking over here to the side, yep, we have a colony. Yes, these are the wild type tubiflex worms, and I believe they are the same species that we already raise, and that's amazing. They like to form colonies above the water surface, and they reach out and grab detritus and dirt and stuff, just like that right there, mixed in with that Azolla fern that happens to be stuck on the glass. But looking beneath them, we also have a whole different kind of cluster. Those other smaller worms are also forming like a swarm down here, almost like another colony. I believe these worms are not directly related, and I think it's just coincidental. There may be particles of food up here or something that is attracting them. These new worms are very exciting, but I am also quite intrigued to see our own wild type tubiflex worms make an appearance from PsychoPlantLady's ecosystem samples. I just think that's so cool, to see another species, to see one of our wild caught species appearing in someone else's projects. And I was very careful to avoid cross contamination, you guys. So this is awesome. We have a whole new species of aquatic snail, along with a whole new species of aquatic worm, along with a new paramecium to play with, and and some excellent plants as well. So Dina, you really sent us an amazing package here, man. I'm very grateful. I don't mean to keep saying that, but it's so cool, you know? Like, back when I first started BucketPonds, I'm like, nobody's going to watch this. Nobody's going to be into it. But over time, we've made a lot of friends. And that's you right now listening to the video. So thank you so much. And thank you, Dina. With your help, we have created these two beautiful jar aquariums. And they look great. These are very interesting tanks on their own. But they are also isolation tanks, isolation chambers, grow out containers. We'll be continuously pulling bits of Frogbit out of here, bits of Azolla Fern, little bits of that algae, along with samples of the microfauna from both containers. Excuse me. As the snails get to ramping up their population and breeding, and we see a few batches of hatchlings come out, I'll be able to take a few of those snails as well and build up other containers. I am super excited. Soon we will introduce some of our snails to some of PsychoPlantLady's snails, and I'm guaranteeing that they are going to breed rapidly right away, because that's what they do. But yes, it's very interesting to have access to another bloodline of bladder snails to mix into our very diverse gene pool. I like to think that our bladder snails are extremely durable, and even more so than normal, because we have crossed many distant, unrelated family lines. Compared to bladder snails that have been forced to interbreed, essentially, inbreeding, in sealed ecosystems or fish tanks, for 10 or 20 generations, that does have an effect on them. It does weaken them. So these new snails coming into our projects, breeding with our own, they may bring useful genetics. And if nothing else, they'll just encourage further population blooms. And I'm just so happy, you guys. This is what it's all about for me. This is like, I feel like we stopped by a friend's house and got a sample of their pond, something like that. And they're, oh, sure, you can have a couple plants, and do what you like. And that's awesome. There's just something special about, checking out a whole new ecosystem. and it makes me want to go on a collection trip. So we're going to have to go on a little collection trip here in the near future. Forgive me if this footage is a little bit raw, as I needed to capture the tanks from a few different angles to try to get a good thumbnail. Also, please ignore the horrible mess, the overgrown jungle all over my plant shelf here. It's time to do some trimming, so yeah, don't look at that. But big thank you to Dina, PsychoPlantLady. Please check out her channel, link in the description. Um, I'm a subscriber of hers. You should be too. If you like my stuff, I guarantee you will like PsychoPlantLady. So thanks, guys. Thanks, Patreons and members. Love you guys.